Hey going, digital world? Welcome back once again. Another fantastic episode of Spliced In Later coming at you. I hope you all have had a good weekend since I last spoke to you. I hope you enjoyed my top 10 movies of 2018. I've heard some good feedback, some good discussions I've had with people I know at least about the list. There have been suggestions that I purposely left out some good movies that do need recognition. I think, as I said before, if I start honouring every movie that I've ever seen, we could be here for days. But I have been told that movies like Hereditary and Sorry to Bother You and a few other films should have been on that list. So it is exciting that a few people are listening and having a think about what movies they want and can't wait to tell me that I was wrong, which is exciting, and I'm happy about that. Love you all. Thank you for tuning in once again. Today, episode 8, standard episode for you. Going to be a bit of a review and a discussion. This might turn into a bit of an advocation, if you will. We'll try not to make it run for too long. I know the top 10 movies ran quite a bit longer than usual, most likely because I got very excited talking about all those movies. This one, we'll see if we can keep it down to a substantial amount of time. But who knows? I might get carried away again. We'll see. And of course, I want to be back with you again in a couple of days. I will be heading off to the movie theaters once again to see Frozen 2. I am very excited to catch Frozen 2. I've been listening to the music before I've even seen the movie. That's how excited I am for it. So when I catch that on Thursday, most likely a review will be up for you to have a cheeky listen to decide if you want to go see Frozen this weekend. But today, for our episode, we'll start with my review, my standard pitching a movie to you before I get lost in my discussions and thoughts and whatnot. And as I said on last episode, today's review is of the movie 12 Angry Men. And I'm pretty sure if you didn't take law class in high school, if you're not taking law at university, if you're not a lawyer, if you don't watch law shows, this movie's definitely gone under your radar. And maybe it has because also it was made in 1957. That's right, this is an old one. It's an old one, but it's a good one. It's an absolute classic. I saw it many years ago, and I just recently watched it again because it was on my top 10 bucket list movies to watch. And I rediscovered my absolute love for this film. So I wanted to get out there and let people know it existed if they didn't know, so they can have a look at it. 12 Angry Men, 1957, very, very simple premise, which is 12 men, 12 jurors are sitting in on a court case, and the court case, very simply, a young boy has been accused of killing his father. Stabbed him to death. Terrible, horrible way to die. We don't hear the actual court case, we don't hear the arguments firsthand. The movie begins with the jurors being sent to deliberate, locked away in a room to discuss whether this young kid is guilty or innocent. Straight away, 11 of the 12 jurors say he's guilty, and that's it. They want to call it a day. But one man, essentially our hero, played by Henry Fonda, says not guilty. And what follows is essentially an hour and a half film of these men arguing, discussing with this one guy about why he should say guilty. But very slowly this man starts to win everybody over one by one to his way of thinking. Not that the kid necessarily may be innocent, but just that there is enough reasonable doubt to avoid a guilty verdict. Because in this case, the guilty verdict would mean the death penalty. All you lawyer and law students out there listening to me, I hope I'm getting all this analogy right. I did want to be a lawyer when I was younger. I took a couple of classes, mainly because I used to watch the TV show Jag. Boy, did I love Jag. A lot of military law and that stuff there. But unfortunately, like a lot of things in my life, I didn't commit. I now work in an office, typing on a computer. But at least I have my podcast, so it's not all doom and gloom. But let's not get hung up on that. What I love about this movie is how simple it is. The whole movie is basically one location. There are a couple of scenes, mainly at the start and at the end, where we branch out into other areas, but specifically it is this one room with a big long table and these 12 men. It's not a continuous take or anything, but it feels like it's the same thing moving forward. There's no fade outs and fade back in to check to see what people are up to. It's a continuous, one long story. I'm not sure if it was a play before it was a movie. It's definitely a play now. It works especially well for a play for that sort of situation. But what's really good about this movie, what I love so much about it, is just the acting and the essence of emotion that all these men are portraying in the subtletiness of their characters. We don't get to know their names. They are credited as just Juror 1, Juror 2, Juror 3. But each man has a specific personality, a specific thing about him that comes across clearly. Straight away, you know who are the meek characters, who are the know-it-alls, who are rude, who are quiet. That personality really factors into how they portray themselves in the movie, whether they agree straight away, whether they stick to their feelings begrudgingly, whether personal prejudices or situations going on at home are affecting their decisions. But this one man, Henry Fonda, he just sticks to his belief, his verdict of not guilty, and it's David versus Goliath essentially, because he has 11 men telling him he's stupid and he needs to shut up and let them go home. One particular person wants to get home to a baseball game. And it's incredible that when I was watching it, how hooked to what was going on the screen I was. There's no flashy action, there's no shooting, no scandal. It is just these 12 men talking. And it is absolutely satisfying to watch from start to finish to get to that point at the end of the movie where if this kid is considered guilty or innocent, I won't spoil the end there. But as a testament to these people in 1957 when films weren't gigantic big blockbusters yet, they were simple things, and to hook my attention like that in this day and age was absolutely compelling. I love it. I love it so much. I cannot advocate 12 Angry Men enough. It's black and white. It's a very quick viewing. It's not a long movie. It is hard to find. I had to order it from my local DVD store to get a copy of it. I couldn't just walk into the shop to buy it. But I imagine this day and age, if you look hard enough, you can probably find it online somewhere. There's 1,000 streaming services out there. It may be on there. I'm sure it wouldn't be too hard to find. And absolutely, it is worth it if you are interested in what makes a film good in terms of art, craftsmanship, how far we've come from when films were. This is a movie that's worth checking out for sure. And especially you lawyer students, maybe you want to watch it again. Boy, does it make me want to be a lawyer. 12 Angry Men, 10 out of 10. Top-notch movie for me. Could be my favorite movie of all time. It's hard to say. I'm in constant flux about what my favorite movie is, depending on what I've seen recently and what sort of mood I'm in. If I'm in a mood for art house films, for the superheroes, for the thrillers, the comedies, it's hard to say. But 12 Angry Men will always be in the top 50, let's say. Definitely not going to go any lower than that. But moving on now, here's the point I want to really get into talking about 12 Angry Men and movies from, let's say, early 1970 to the past. It's getting extremely difficult these days to recommend these movies to your average person. Unless you're a film buff or whatever, it's getting hard for people to give these movies the time of day. I want to tell people to watch 12 Angry Men, but it's heartbreaking to have someone go, when was it made? 1957? No, can't watch it. It would look so bad. It would look old, boring, dated. That's devastating to hear. An example I'll pull recently from a few weeks ago. Apologies to the person I'm about to use as an example. If you do listen to my podcast, I do appreciate you for listening. But ever since we had this discussion, I've wanted to jump on here and voice my concern. So if you know I'm talking about you, well done. You gave me a whole episode. So thanks. Appreciate it. Not too long ago, I watched The Great Escape for the first time. An absolutely sensational movie that I'd obviously heard about. I'd seen the references. I knew what it was. But I'd never had the time to sit down and watch it. It was gifted to me. I gave myself a Saturday afternoon. It's a 3-hour movie, essentially, and it was absolutely well done. Steve McQueen and co. as prisoners during World War II, stuck in a German prisoner of war camp, and their escapades trying to escape. Fantastic. Loved it. So good. Recommend The Great Escape. I went away the next day and I ran into this person, who shall remain nameless, and said, here's a movie I think you'll like. In terms of its location, themes, army, all that stuff, I think this is for you. You should watch The Great Escape. And the very first question I was asked was, when was it made? 1965. 1965? Oh, no, sorry, too old. I can't watch old movies. It's too boring. It's too dated. I can't stick with it. It doesn't make me believe what's happening. Gut-wrenching. And as a result, they're not going to watch The Great Escape. With these older movies, I get it. I understand. They are going to be dated with the movies that we exist with in today's times. A movie like Casablanca is not going to look as real as, say, John Wick Chapter 3 that came out this year with some scenes were set in Casablanca. But that doesn't mean it's not worth watching Casablanca. These movies paved the way for the movies that we are seeing in today's time. Without these older movies, without your 12 Angry Men, your Great Escape, your Casablanca, there would be no 12 Years a Slave, The Dark Knight, Whiplash, Her, Office Space, all these movies. The movie industry as a whole would not be a thing if these movies had not been successful enough that people went, yeah, we should stick with this idea, we should run with it, because this is just going to keep giving and giving and giving. Not too long ago, I watched Citizen Kane for the first time. And this is where I'm also guilty of this. Hopefully, as I watch more and more movies, I'll become more educated in my opinion. But for a long time, I didn't watch Citizen Kane because I was told it is the greatest movie that you will never want to watch. Because as great as it is, it's boring, it's not exciting, a snooze fest, essentially. Now, I've watched Citizen Kane. I will admit, it's not the most exciting film I've ever seen. But I think that's mainly due to living in 2019. Citizen Kane is not going to surprise you, because if you've watched The Simpsons or anything else, you know what Citizen Kane is about and what the big Citizen Kane twist is. Citizen Kane today should not be treasured for its story or whether it is exciting or not. Citizen Kane is groundbreaking in the techniques it uses with camera work and filming to portray its story. For example, there is a scene in Citizen Kane where a scene is being acted out inside a log cabin. Outside through the window, you can see the protagonist, Charles Kane, playing with his snow sled. The camera moves through the scene in the cabin, outside, zooms in on Mr. Kane outside in the snow, and focuses on him. Now, the idea of a camera moving in 1940-ish, 42, I think, when Citizen Kane came out, was ludicrous. Cameras sat still. You had 4 or 5 cameras, different angles, so you could catch every scene that was happening. But it was for the actors to move. A camera shouldn't move. That's insane. Citizen Kane also did some establishing shots. A camera would move from one side of the room to the other. It would circle around an actor. It would cut from something on a TV to an actor speaking in the same room. All this stuff, groundbreaking for Citizen Kane. It had not come before it. And if Citizen Kane had not done it, it wouldn't exist in today's time. So hopefully you can see what I'm getting at here. Citizen Kane is treasured for what it means for film, not necessarily what the film is about. But of course, because it was made in 1942, because it's black and white, because it's not about guns or police shooting robbers, car chases, even much as I love them, it's not about the superheroes exploding planets, then people don't care. And that's truly a shame. There are a lot of people as well who have told me that they have watched movies like these, but when you get right down to it, people know the things about classic movies rather than having seen the movies themselves. For example, Psycho. Everybody knows Psycho because everybody's seen that scene with the woman in the shower getting stabbed. But can you tell me who that woman was? Can you tell me where she was, why she was being stabbed? What was the point? Most people hopefully can, but there would be people who have no idea what I'm talking about if I said the name Norman Bates. Same with Jaws, for example. People know about the famous line, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," often misquoted as "we're gonna need a bigger boat." Haha. Bit of fun movie trivia for you there. But no one's actually seen Jaws from start to finish. They've seen the scene where Jaws attacks the boat just so they can make fun of how fake the shark looks. Well, unfortunately, Jaws was made at a time when we didn't have CGI. The work that was put into making a animatronic, gigantic shark figure attack a boat is phenomenal, and people should be congratulated for that work. Not nose turned up at because you don't believe it's a real shark because it's 2019. I get it. The Meg came out a couple years ago, or maybe it was last year. Time's going by so fast I can't keep up. If the shark in the Meg had been up to the standards as the shark in Jaws, absolutely you have every right to poo-poo it, to turn your nose up, because that's not the standard that we're used to now. What's available to the people who made the Meg, if they had gone with a fake shark, then they deserve to be ridiculed for it. But you cannot go back to Jaws and say, why didn't you make a shark as realistic as the big CGI dinosaur shark we just had this year? Going on 40 years later, there's your answer, right in front of you, the passage of time. Now, I'm not saying go out and watch every single classic movie. I know for a fact I haven't seen every classic movie. Charlie Chaplin, he's done a bunch of films, and I've only seen 2 of them. And the only reason I've seen the 2 of them is because they were on that poster. So I'm not about to get up on my high horse and say that I'm one of these people that's a film connoisseur that takes in all these older films and appreciates them for what they are. Absolutely not. I still have a long way to go. But I just want people to not write these movies off because of their age, because of their production value, because they're in black and white. These movies have something to offer if you give them a chance. And who knows, you may find a movie that absolutely blows you away that you wouldn't even have considered watching because of those standards. For instance, 12 Angry Men. That's the one I will recommend as an example for people to give a go if they want to start watching older films but they're a bit unsure. 12 Angry Men has a solid story. It's not confusing. You know what's happening. And I think watching it, you'll get the best example of the progression of film, what that film was taking advantage of that was available in 1957, and why it is such a fantastic movie. To sum it up, overall, don't call them old films, call them classics. Give a classic a go. Watch them. If you're listening to me on YouTube and you've seen these classic films, if there are some that you think are particularly good, feel free to let me know. If you disagree with me completely and you think they're so boring, let me know why. There you go. Thank you very much for checking in for my very brief review of 12 Angry Men and then my very long spiel about classic films. Again, I may have got carried away, but this stuff is very important to me, and I hope it's become not important to you per se, but that you're interested enough in films to understand what I'm saying and hopefully check out these films. As Arnold Schwarzenegger said, I'll be back very soon for your Frozen 2 review. And as usual with these things, I like to add a little bit extra into it. So I'll give you a brief look at what I thought of Frozen 1 as well. Be a Frozen extravaganza that's coming to you on Thursday. I'm very excited to share that. I'm very excited to see it. It should be a good time. I love and appreciate you as always. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's been an absolute blast talking to you, as always. You've been spliced in later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.